Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Eurotrade. I'm your host, Mark Stucker-D. And for one more week, we're going to be doing the Eurotrade in the old time slot due to some unforeseen circumstances, but here we are again. If you've stumbled across this stream just randomly, that does mean that you want to know a little bit about me. So yeah, I see that Bruno has said 5 a.m. No, actually, we're still doing one last week on the old schedule, and then fingers crossed that we're going to be starting next week. So yeah. All right, so I've been trading for 18 years. I specialize in slightly different products, more alternative products such as commodities, gold, copper, crude oil, gasoline futures, natural gas. So this is why we want to be moving the stream a little bit closer to the time when those products are actually trading. But let's have a look at what we have today. As always, when I'm looking at the new week, I want to look at the massive time frame. So we're going to have a look at the weekly time frame. Gold just going up, up, and up. Copper trying to recover that massive smash down that we had as a result of some institutional order when the tariffs were confirmed to be going through. Is it going to try to make a run through it? Probably. This is a weak structure that does require some repair. And right now we are trying, or it is trying to push into that weak structure. So we're going to see if we can get more details as we go down through the time frames. Go down to the time frames. All right, gold on the daily chart, very flat. I mean, if this is not distribution consolidation, I don't know what is, right? I don't know why. We started September, and gold seems to have been very, very lively for the summer. And now, when everything else is livening up, gold is like, we're just going to chill here. Chill zone, right? Where it goes from here, I don't know, but usually when we have a distribution, there is about a 70% chance that we're going to see some sort of a pullback. How big that pullback is going to be, nobody knows, but I wouldn't necessarily just be smashing in longs here unless we can get above Asia high on the intraday time frame. Now, this is not the Asia high. This is from last week. I'm literally just sitting down to look at the charts. So we are going to see what is going to happen there. Now on copper, though, so let's make this bigger. Copper looks like it's going into a little bit more of a committed uptrend on this daily time frame. Keeps making new higher highs. Obviously, last week we had, what was this? This was CPI. Going into an uptrend. Then Friday having a take profit move. All very, very normal. But yeah, we'll see if we can go above Asia high today or whether we're going to stay range bound. That is the next step of the analysis. Okay, 4-hour chart on gold. I mean, middle of the middle. Literally. New Asia high is going to be somewhere here at 36.84.6. So whilst I'm here, let me just have a look at the 30-minute chart. Okay. This is Globex open candle. And that's where Asia high is located. Now I'm going to do the same thing. Exactly the same thing on copper. That's a 4-hour chart. Let's go down to the lower chart. This is not copper, is it? This is still gold, still gold. All right, let's find Globex Open. There it is. So Asia high is actually 466.90. And then third is 463.80 is what we are. Let me just check my bot. Interesting. My bot is deciding to round up some numbers. I don't know why that's happening. I did not tell it to do that. So, okay. I mean, we can work with that because it's only... Why is it? Yeah, so I'm going to have a look at that because that's confusing. So the bot is saying 467 for Asia high and 463 for Asia low, which is not really correct. So I'm going to have to check the times of the day. Is it maybe taken in? Maybe I have some rounding code because I know that I was trying to round it up to 4 decimals, but I think it may have gone a little bit too far and it just went to round up the second decibel or something, which still wouldn't make sense because if we're at 463.80, this is the thing that I deal with. It's like, it's doing that, why? And then you do something, it's not supposed to do that, why? So yeah. Beanstalk is saying, is there a bank holiday in Asia today? I don't know, but I don't trade really Asia, do I? I trade London, and there's no bank holiday in London. So LME is going to be trading normally. We can have a look at the calendar. I am not seeing any holidays in Asia. I'm seeing a holiday in Japan, but I'm not seeing a holiday in China, nor other Asian countries. Remember, China has the Shanghai exchange, right? So, and actually, if you look at volume, Shanghai is much bigger than Tokyo. However, because Tokyo opens up first, and it's got the Nikkei and stuff, everybody looks at that. But when it comes to metals, I would say that the Shanghai exchange is probably more important. I think you can even see that in the way the price action operates, especially on gold, because gold is widely traded for Asia. But I'm not really an Asia trader. I don't know where you got that from. So if you notice, so here is gold. Let's do a little marker here. So this is the Globex Open. Then this is the Tokyo Open. Volume is just like, we don't care, right? Tokyo Open's gold is just not doing anything. But have a look at 1:30 a.m. my time. Have a look at what volume does. Suddenly there's a spike in the volume. That will be the Shanghai exchange kicking in. And that's when you get the commitment to either side. That's when you get that stop run and reverse from the previous session. So it's exactly the same behavior. So you get a shakeout, then a reversal, and then it goes into whatever it's going to do to establish a nice range. It's exactly the same, right? But it's the Shanghai exchange where you see the volume kicking up a lot more. However, I am asleep during Asia. I did trade it a few times, long time ago when we were touring around Asia, but not since then. And we're talking 2010, maybe even 2009, a long time ago. But yeah. Beanstalk says, someone was saying this on another channel, but I could not see that either, so I was confused what they were talking about. About what? Oh yeah, bank holiday. So yeah, Japan apparently does have bank holiday. Yeah, so that's what I'm seeing on my calendar. Get with it, D. Get with it. Get with it. How can we help you, Google? Yeah, describe your issue. Did I just press something? Probably. It's still early. I need to caffeinate, guys. I need to caffeinate before we carry on. All right, so next part of the analysis. Ajit, I'm not an equities trader. I really couldn't care less what ES is doing at this time of day. I think we have enough ES and NQ YouTubers, okay? Those two products are the most commonly represented products. So if you want to learn something more about maybe another asset class, stop pushing ES and NQ in my face because I bloody hate the things. The only equity index that I've extensively traded for the last 7-8 years is DAX. We don't have DAX, so therefore this is why we're going to be focusing on my other products, which are actually my primary products, right? Gold, copper, platinum, gasoline futures, aka RBOB, natural gas, heating oil, you know, things that you don't hear much about. If you want to hear about ES and NQ, this is probably not the stream for you. I'll be very honest, okay? All right, let's have a look at the next part of the analysis. Again, you're distracting me. Why are you distracting me? You know, I'm trying to expose people that to the fact that there is life outside of ES and NQ, you know? Okay, I'm going to have a look at two ways of value areas in their respective London Metal Exchange first and foremost, and then we're going to have a look at NYMEX too, because some people like to trade gold much later in the day because they might want to sleep in the meantime. Okay, so we have the LME exchange related value area at 3681.3. Let's do coordinates because it's easier. So this is the LME value area. As you can see, pretty close to Asia high. Could be some confluence. Text should still be yellow, D. Yes. Then we have the value high at 3689.2. Why are these important? Because it tells us where Friday's business took place and where the price is currently trading. Now, at this time of the day, it's super early, so this could change. But at this particular point in time, we're trading below value. That's a little bearish, okay? So that's not... some people have this misconception because I realized that on some of the Topstep main broadcasts every time I was on, and I was like, well, it's below value. And they're like, oh, so we go long. And I'm like, why would you think that? And they're like, well, it's a discount, it's below value. And I'm like, that's not how you read the sentiment based on the value area. So here's the thing. When you're a little bit underneath the value area, this is a market profile concept, that's actually bearish until proven otherwise. And actually value acceptance should really only be taken with context in mind. And that will be that the value acceptance massively needs to happen first on a 30-minute time frame, nothing less. And then you might have this rotation through the entirety of the value area. But given the context that we are flat on the day, very flat on the day, okay? And the fact that we open with a slight imbalance to the downside, just like a mild imbalance downwards, that's actually very, very bearish, okay? If we had opened miles out, like we open London at 36.60 below value, you can then argue that that is a big imbalance and that there's no more business to be done there, so therefore they have to go into a mean reversion. But it is very dependent on what caused the big open. Sometimes it is a fundamental release that changes the relationship and the potential forward-looking indicators to maybe be worried about something, and then we might say, okay, this is a repricing. So even if they try going into a mean reversion, we probably should just still be short. So you look for a pullback and a continuation based on the fact that the imbalance is too big, it's gone too far out, and the dudes who are trying to trade this are just not able to make money at these levels because nobody will take their prices. Now, I do think that because gold has run up so high, that any sort of a sell-off actually has quite a lot of juice inside it. So I wouldn't be against shorting gold if the opportunity presents itself. So what does that mean? It means I have several options. I have the option of a test of value low, but putting it into an intraday contextual playbook. I do know that Asia high likes to be taken out first, so I would go for maybe a test of the value, fake out above that 36.84.3, and then a prompt comeback into the Asia range. To me, that would be definitely one of the setups to take if it shows up. I do look at some volume related things at this time. So there's a particular volume exhaustion that I want to see as they go into Asia. And I do not want the prices to hold above the Asia high, because that would then open up a possibility for the value acceptance. So that premium discount sort of idea where, you know, you're discounted below value and then you're kind of going into the value acceptance. So you can kind of smush the concepts together at that point. But that is a lower probability setup. Value acceptance in general depends on what you're looking at. Like I think ES has about, it's a pretty good statistic for the value acceptance longs, but I think value acceptance short, that's a bit tricky, right? And in fact, we could maybe have a look at doing some basic modeling and just research, really, not even modeling, but just research to see what kind of prognosis value acceptance would have on gold. So maybe we can use one of my research things that has the value acceptance already, and then to perhaps apply that to ES and then see what sort of things we come up with. Yeah. So let me see. Which one has it? Let me give it a prompt so it works in the background. So I'm just going to check something, and then if it has that, we can maybe have a look at it. Okay. Just need to give it some context. Okay. So once you have some shell calcs that you've done, you can then use AI to kind of transfer them over. It's not perfect, but it's sort of pretty workable for this purpose. And by the way, I'm still running my algorithms here that I have 4 of them, and they're just GC and copper. So I'm going to see, because I had some minor problems with it, so I think I got it to a certain standard, but I'm still in testing mode, so we'll see. All right, so what do I want to create here? So I do have the value high, value low. So let's get the ES futures. I need to give it a prompt for what I wanted to test, so create a strategy that will, and remember I have these conditions coded up already, right? So that will look for, let's go with Dalton's initial thing. So look for a 30-minute candle close. I need to give it the hours first because I don't want it to trade like all day every day, right? I want it to take the value area from the previous day and then to create a little value acceptance script for the strategy testing, right? So this is just a strategy test. It's not a bot. This is just like what I call my counting algorithms. I used to have to do these all by myself, like manually and stuff. Now you create 1 or 2 and then AI just kind of automates vast parts of your workflow. So create a strategy that will trade during USA regular trading hours. So I need to give it hours as well. And then 2, have 1 30-minute candle that closes back inside it. And then I'm going to ask it how many days. I don't have any conditions about how far away it should be. That's like part of the optimization. How many times in like 6 months did this happen, and did the price then rotate through totality of the previous day value. It's going to take some time now, okay? Because it's not like, oh yeah, you give it a prompt. It has to do all these calcs now, so yeah. But I have frameworks that it should use. I've given it some files as context. Because interestingly, I don't know whether you know this, but if you do work with AI, every chat is a new thing. It doesn't actually because you know I was under the impression that it kind of has some context behind it, but it doesn't. It has context in like the project that you're working with, but if you start a new chat, it literally has no memory of any other references. So you have to make sure that you understand that. So yeah. Seem to have misplaced my Discord. There it is. Right. Okay, let's have a look at some questions here. Do you observe in the past good setup on gold during Asia session? Again, Cedric, I'm not an Asia trader. Like gold is probably quite good. I have done Nikkei and gold trades before, but I would not rely on the few trades that I've had during Asia to tell anyone else what they should be doing or shouldn't be doing. But for me, my main session was always the New York session for energies markets, okay? And then only when I started trading DAX, I started looking at London. Other than that, I always used to trade, like for many, many years, I was trading just the New York session. I wouldn't even start until, you know, 11, 12. But because DAX, when I worked for a London-based firm, obviously we had to be there. Okay, it's coming up with some things here. So I had to obviously be there at 7 a.m. and then everything would kick off at 8. I mean, Eurex was already open by the time we were having our little meetings in the morning where everybody was half asleep. But yeah, so that's when I started looking at it, and that's why these streams were initially set up for DAX trading, but we didn't get that. So now we're changing it to 5 a.m. Central from next week, which is going to be a little bit weird because on that same day, I'm taking one of my female dogs for a snip. So I'm actually going to have to be in London from an office space. So the very first time change, I'm going to be in a weird office on my little laptop. But that's okay. I've done like traveling setups whenever I go with mom. Okay, so here is did it do it right? Hold on, let me analyze this. Okay, yeah. So let's have a look. Can I maybe just grab this and then... No. Okay, so let me just make sure that there's nothing... All right, because you know, obviously I don't want any personal info there. Just like random. Let's have a look at what AI tells us, right? Here we go. So core findings in the last 6 months. Now this is just preliminary, okay? I literally just use this to see whether a strategy has merit, right? 69 value acceptance setups, and mind you, I'm not giving it how far away from value. I'm not giving it any other conditions apart from having one 30-minute time frame candle that closes inside it and then rotates. So how many times did that happen? 69 value acceptance setups occurred, 53% of the trading days, so roughly about 54% of all trading days in the last 6 months had that on ES, so this is ES. But out of that, we had 36, this is interesting, so be careful with this, right? So it says 36 successful acceptances because I gave it that as a condition. That is not what I wanted to do. And so 52% of the time we had the close of the 30-minute candle back inside value. But look at the next number. Only 7 of those rotated through the value. So Now, that really puts it down into 19% success rate, right? Now, let's have a look at whether some longs and shorts might be different. So, yeah. So, let's see. Short setups on ES perform better than longs. But limited follow-through, because in all of these situations, only 19% of acceptances led to full value area rotation. Okay, so let's now ask it whether the rotation happened on the long side or on the short side, right? So give me the results on 4 rotations for long side, so longs, and full rotation for shorts. So I'm going to let it do that. And then I'm going to go back to see what questions we still have. Amanda says, good morning to you. Can the VWAP fadeaway trade can be used on copper with the condition of having single principal? I don't know what a VWAP fadeaway trade is. Is that a test of VWAP and a bounce? Is that running through VWAP? Because, you know, the way I'm using VWAP, it's either as a level of confluence after some sort of a pullback, maybe for a continued move up, or if it's outside of the areas I'm looking at, that we smack into VWAP and then maybe go into a failed auction. So I don't really know what the fadeaway trade is. Rand says, will you share this prompt? This prompt is not going to do anything unless you have tick data and unless you have my code for the value acceptance, which is not volume value, it's TPO value. So sharing the prompt, like, remember, I'm working with libraries that I've created. So it's not going to give you anything useful. It's going to probably go and drag something from like Yahoo Finance, and then it's going to create you like a random volume area that does not look at the previous day RTH TPO value. So, you know, a prompt is not where the whole thing is doing its calculations. It's doing it based on the code that I've given it prior, that I've been working on for like 2 weeks now. Okay. Okay, we have some things. Yeah, so not really that great on the value acceptance. Acceptance rate is not really relevant in this case because we're only looking at the 30-minute candle entry potential. It is the rotation that we're looking at. And you can see the long setups perform a little bit better, 23%. Shorts full rotations happen at a rate of 17%. Partial rotations, 19 and 10. So if anything, partial rotations are better. So notable insights, long setups have a better rotation rate. Short setups have a better acceptance rate, meaning that it looks as if it accepts value to the downside more frequently, but me knowing what I know about ES and it not rotating all the way down through the value, that actually makes a lot of sense. Distances. So is this the distance of the open? Yeah, so it's basically telling me, because this is another thing that I'm doing in one of my other scripts, where I'm using the open in relation to the distance of value. So it's actually giving me a breakdown of that as well, which I didn't really ask it to do, but useful, right? So here's the 4 rotation days and how much distance the price opened on that day. So how far away were we? Apart from this one here, where it opened 1.4% and still, so I'm guessing this was some sort of a single direction day. Shorts, full rotation, they're pretty equal, very, very low frequency of occurrence, only 7 out of the 120 days or whatever. And notice that we have some distances on the longs that are telling us something. So when the price opens fairly close to the value area, to below it, it generally tends to offer a full rotation. 2 of these are outliers, right? So it opened once at over 1% below and 1% above, 1.4% above, and still managed to rotate, but those are outlier days. So for me, value acceptances on ES, because of this, I'm not going to be working with something that only happens like 17 or 19%. Just without me doing any optimizations, I wouldn't say that this is a valid strategy for me personally. So this is the very first step that I take on deciding if I should be coding up a strategy or not. And if it just sucks right out of the box, you can try do a song and dance and everything, but the whole thing remains very low frequency. So I focus on setups that happen fairly frequently and that can occur multiple times per week and that have a reasonable expectation on success. So anything sort of 50% and over. And I've even done some setups that are 43% or over, but I'm getting like 60 trades in a month out of that strategy. I'm very happy with that. I don't mind slightly lower accuracy occurrences, but I do like the setups to appear frequently, right? I mean, we all know how most traders are these days. If I told somebody that some of my code only runs like once or twice a week, it finds good setups, they'll be like, what do you mean? They want to have like 100 trades. I'm not quite that bad, but at the same time, I would like to have at least like several, like 3, 4, 5 times a week, maybe even twice per day, depending on the different opens. So I want to have those types of setups. But yeah, for me, this is why value acceptance is not really that much of a great setup for me, and I would rather take the edge of value, outer edge of value bounce over this, and precisely because of this is why I don't really consider value acceptance to be one of my like core things. It's like a special situation. Yeah, but it has a 19% of working out. It's like, no thanks. Yeah, lots of partial rotations. Yeah. Amanda says, I have projects set up on ChatGPT to reference past memories related to journaling indicators made. Yeah, just be careful, because every new chat you start, it actually has no references to that, believe it or not. This is a common misconception. And then it makes mistakes. Why? Because it tries to get context from the new chat. If you reference the old chat, maybe, that would be like, okay. However, actually, let's ask it. Let's ask it. Why do we make this into a fun thing? So, do you remember our previous chats and contexts, including let's talk to AI, shall we? Let's see what it says. My new friend. I've got a friend. Yeah. Yeah, okay, so what it's doing now is just telling you no. So all it's doing, like I've been working with this thing for like 2 weeks, right? And I just asked him, do you remember our previous chat and contacts, including files? And he goes, yes, I remember our previous chat and context. And then it references only the today's chat. So it's like, we examined that file, uses TPO market profile, blah, blah, blah. I have access to all the files we created. We can continue building on this work. But it didn't tell me. So let me say this. I'm talking about the projects from the previous week. Do you remember our previous projects and chats? Not related to ES from today. And now look at what it says. I apologize, but I don't have access to our previous conversations from earlier this week or other projects we may have worked on together. Each conversation with me starts fresh. I can only see the current conversation context and the files in your workspace. So you can see the files, but it doesn't remember context. It's like Drew Barrymore from 50 First Dates. It's like, okay, yeah, the files are there, but I don't know what we worked on. And then it just drags out what we worked on. It's like, if you would like me to continue to work on any of those previous projects, I'd be happy to help, even though I have no idea what you wanted me to do, and I don't remember any of it. So point me to the relevant files in your workspace, then I can get new context or old context, however you want to do it. Then describe to me what you're working on, and then we can continue. So be very careful because of this, okay? Because it has references to files, but it has no idea what you talked about. It has no idea. So, yeah. This was surprising to me, frankly, because I never really used AI for anything. I used to do all the grunt work myself. But yeah, I just thought it was funny that it doesn't actually remember anything. It sees files, so it tries to get context, but it does make sense to me now why in the beginning it was making so many mistakes. Because, I assumed that it remembered all the chat and context, and then it would try to do like stupid stuff that I'm just like, what? That's not what I, like, what? Why? Yeah, exactly, MS is correct. Feed me all the data, and then I can describe it to you. So it's like, yeah. So every day now that I start, I basically tell it, look at this file, look at that file. And I actually have to explain it, what it actually did. I also have to stop it from doing stuff that it's not supposed to be doing. Like, for example, sometimes it just makes shit up, right? So I tell it to reference a file where I have perfect infrastructure, and it just decides to take the like the layout of it roughly, and then it doesn't, like, it starts coming up with its own ways to call up an order, and I'm like, that doesn't exist in the library that we've been working on. It's like, what are you doing? And he goes, oh, sorry, yeah, I thought you wanted me to create my own ways of calling, like, orders and stuff. And I'm like, what? So I actually did get annoyed with it, which is why I looked up actually what can it remember, right? And that makes perfect sense, that it can't remember squat. 5 Panda says, just continue from the previous tab conversation. No, each chat that you start, even if you had the previous chat and then you give it a new prompt for whatever, like, let's say I was working on my sort of like stop, run, and reverse bot with it. It was the same chat every day, but whenever it had a break, it would consider me coming to ask it something as a brand new chat again. Regardless of the times that I went back to the tab and tried to ask it again to continue work, it had no idea. So it would start to like formulate the entire file, so I had to stop it. So yeah, be very careful with AI if you don't really know what you're doing with a coder. I can see why some people who are trying to vibe code are getting nowhere with it, because it makes mistakes. It makes huge mistakes sometimes, and if you're not a pretty decent coder to start with, you won't know. Because it looks legit. You open up code, you're like, that looks great, right? But then you see what it actually tried to do, and you're like, that's just wrong. So, yeah. It's great that it automates things. Like, once I have the shell of what we're working on, I can then just give it a very specific prompt. For example, now I have this library that has constructors in it, and it's got a whole bunch of stuff that it relies on. So all I need to do is, if I'm making a new strategy, I basically can put a new strategy logic, but I can effectively drag out all of the utilities that I need from the existing files. But that took me like nearly 2.5 weeks. So yeah. High Life is saying, good morning, you're a nice breeze in there. Yeah, it's a bit windy. We woke up this morning and the oak tree is like, it's a bit scary. Yeah, we've got some, I wouldn't call them gale winds, but yeah, it's a little bit drafty outside. Yeah, Siwa says, oh, you wanted, like they're talking to AIs. Oh, you wanted me to add 2 + 2 when you said 2 + 2. I did not do that. I'm sorry. Yeah, I told it to use the order, exactly the order types and everything, because obviously you have to define, it's an API, right? So you have to send the orders as they're defined in the API documentation. And I told it, don't make stuff up. Use existing structure and existing methods to reference the orders. And it didn't do that. It just made stuff up. Like, instead of place limit order or something, it just made up place stop limit. And I'm like, what are you doing? And then he goes, well, I'm having problems with stop losses. Would you like me to praise it? And it was a long order that I was trying to test. And so this is the thing that I had problems with last week. So I did it all. Then AI messed it up. So I was like, what have you done? Can you just stop doing stupid stuff? And then he goes, oh, sorry, yes, it does seem like our stop orders are not working. And I'm like, yeah, because you changed crap that you're not supposed to be changing. And then he goes, I have a great idea. Why don't we put, so it's, reminder, it's a long order, right? So we're buying. I could put a limit order for your stop. And I was like, except you can't put stop orders as a limit below the current marketplace for long orders. Oh, yes, you're absolutely correct. That will never work. I'm like, you're dumb. It's just like, so yeah, so be careful working with AI. It can get very, very dumb sometimes. Sometimes I'm asking it to do one thing, and then it just starts working on something completely different, and I have to stop it. I said, I did not ask you to do that. It was related to a strategy. Oh yeah, so I was working on this new RBOB sort of mean reversion failed auction thing, and I have a example file. It's already done. It's perfect. It's got 4 different things in it, and I said, okay, we're going to be working on something else now. So take a look at my example from here, and I'm going to give you some conditions for a new bot, new strategy. And he goes, oh, do you want me to integrate this new strategy? No, I'm going to start integrating this new strategy into the existing app. And I'm like, no! It's like, no, don't do that. So yeah, it's been a bit stressful. It's been a bit stressful. Genius Genie said, Deeyana, I really like the way you calculate ADR. It's quite different than others. Yeah, because we came up with our way. Well, you kind of shared the method you use to do the session and day. I'm not going to be sharing it again because it's our proprietary way of calculating it. It's got some weighted averages in it. It's got some dynamic tracking. But what we're doing now, I recognize that people want to use our Blatic DR everywhere. So not just on any single platform that we might have it on. So what we're actually working on a utilities Discord. So it's not going to be Discord where I want to see people chatting, or I'm not going to be doing coaching on Discord like I do for the VIP on Topstep. It's literally just going to be an area where we're going to be publishing the levels from our indicators. So you can use them wherever you want, okay? And it's going to be posted 3 times a week, 3 times a day to reflect 3 different sessions. We're going to have ADR and market profile in there, okay? So I have been also working on that. However, what my business partner was doing that side of things for the last week or so. It's still not ready because I need to do like the servers and stuff, and to make sure that everything is broken down into the products that people want to see rather than everything just being smushed into one area. So yeah, it's probably going to take me another couple of days or so just to come up with that. And I don't know, maybe my business partner wants to mess around with server organizations as well. So if you're up for doing that, you're very welcome to, if you're listening. Because sometimes he watches these. I don't know whether he watches these every day, but yeah. Martin Petty says, love the show. Copy and load Project X doc into AI over and over, and it can vibe code and interface and run your strategy, but absolutely check everything. Yeah, so here's the thing. I use Python, and converting the JSON payloads and stuff, it did not do that correctly, even though I fed it everything, right? I actually had to recode a lot of the stuff that it just got wrong, despite me giving it full API documentation. And then obviously there's a matter of running concurrent streams, so it had problems with that. There were certain names about the contract ID that were not fairly obvious, because I said list available contracts. It listed the available contracts, but then I couldn't find it when I tried to anchor those contracts, and then I tried to do it through like a raw API, and I got the contract names, but it was a little bit weird because a lot of the contracts names seem to be running on CQG, old names, and yet, you know, you're looking for, let's say, HGZ, which is what TradingView uses, and it wouldn't find it. So then I was like, well, look for HG, and it couldn't find that either. So I was like, okay, then let's just look at anything that might relate to copper, and then it found it, but it was a CPE rather than HG. So CQG contracts, again, like I have on my other platform that does run CQG. So yeah. Yeah, subscription costs not that much. I'm gonna let everybody know on my newsletter, obviously, because we have a whole community of people. So yeah, I'll probably post it on somewhere on socials as well. Maybe I'll even do a little short to explain what it is on YouTube. But that's all related to my own channel. If you want to check that out, it is underneath this video, and kindly go there, and maybe, just maybe, you find some useful videos about some of the methods that I'm talking about here. I've been really scratchy today. I don't know why. It's really annoying. I have like MCAS, so it's probably playing up. MS says, this is the AI talking. I couldn't find solid examples right now of large gold miners. They have 30% below, but I can walk you through what I found and how to look for them so you can spot some. Yeah. Exactly, yeah. Yeah, so what I did with AI is to load up the entire API documentation, and then I actually went through each one example that it tried to do. And instead of trying to create full-on single file setups, I didn't want that. I wanted it a lot more modular so that I can have a main app and that I can have the ability to drag out different strategies. So the main app has to run, has to initialize and run the market streams, data streams, user hub. It has to track the orders and update the trading dashboard that I created. And I suck at GUIs, by the way, so just keep that in mind. Where is it? Here it is. Yeah. So this was all AI. I just told it what I wanted, and yeah, when it finds an active order, we don't have anything right now. It's nowhere near any levels that I want to see on HG or GC. But when it does an order, it's going to update it in this section, and I wanted a ticker. I wanted just a quote board because I miss my quote board from the olden days. I have the spread here, and I have the overall volume as well. So I wanted that. I created that. So yeah. Yeah, so what I did, I created constructors in separate files so that I can drag them through and import them into either the bots or the main app, depends on what the constructor is. And yeah, took me like 3 weeks or so. So yeah, Signal R was annoying. Very annoying to start. It's very particular about the order. And, you know, I looked at all the documentation. I thought I did it correctly. And then it was just like, Signal R cannot establish connection. And then I needed to change the order of how it was calling it. So I'm like, yeah, okay, that's quite finicky. Quite finicky. But yeah, I do think that AI is useful. Just be a little bit careful with it. Risto, not on, so I don't know about Copilot, but Copilot is not, is that AI coding? Because Copilot is just an assistant, isn't it? What's Copilot? All right, yeah. What does it use? Because I haven't used Copilot. I use Cursor with Claude Sonnet right now. Yeah, Copilot, it just helps with the accuracy and debugging. It doesn't. Yeah, it's not. I don't think you can use it with complex projects and multiple files where you get context from. At least I've not heard anybody use it. So yeah, usually it's either Claude or Gemini or something like that. So yeah. High Life says, I talked to ChatGPT for a while instead of psychologist. I hope it won't cause me trouble in the future. It's probably going to cause you less trouble for that. You know, whilst trying to code through AI can give you traumas, for sure. But sorting out their existing traumas is probably going to be better than any human things. All right, let's. Hardeep says, I lost my account on Friday. It was my 18th day in the account. Balance. Okay, so at least you lasted, Hardeep, you nearly lasted 18 days, which was better than 2 or 3. So that's still progress. But yeah. So now the next time around, the challenge will be the real goal for you, Hardeep, would be to keep it for 30 days. So double the amount, right? And keep doing that. And then someday you might be able to hold on to an account indefinitely. So yeah, but sorry to hear that. Not what we want to see. So yeah, Amanda, let me know if you told me what the VWAP fadeaway is, because there's quite a bit of chat here. So yeah, so let's see. See what I say? Which one are you talking to? I'm using cursor. Yeah. So this is what I found as well. Cursor gutted some seriously complex projects. You have to tell it not to do that. With rigid rails up, they will reiterate at every prompt. Yeah. Yeah, that's what it tried to do to me. And then I was like, I mean, my projects are not super complex, but they're complex enough. You know, you have several libraries that you need to pull stuff from, and they have very particular constructors and stuff. So I'm like, and it goes, let me simplify that for you. And I was like, yeah, please don't, because you're going to mess it up. So just leave it. That's not what I asked you to do. Like, naughty AI. But yeah, it's funny. It is funny. So yeah, I have a new friend. Dee found a friend. So, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, token updates are easy. It's yeah. I mean, that's the basic. Right, test and bounce when volume spike. Right, so pullback and a volume spike. That's what you meant by a VWAP fade. So in this context, because on gold specifically, VWAP is so flat at this time of the day, I don't think that's appropriate. So here's the thing. With VWAP bounce and volume, I really want to have VWAP sloping a little bit, unless you're looking for a run-through VWAP as a rotational strategy, where VWAP is the middle. That's, probably more applicable in this situation. But if you want a trending or some sort of a trend move to go up a certain way, then to pull back to VWAP and then bring volume back in, I want the VWAP to have a slope. So yeah, it's super quiet right now. So on GC and HG, so we are just bouncing inside Asia range. So again, until that changes, I have two strategies. We're either going to go above Asia high or Asia low and reverse that. If that happens, I will jump on that. If that one fails, I will then look to see whether we can hold either above Asia high or Asia low, like in the simplest way possible. That is what I'm looking for. If we stay range bound, it means it's going to be a quieter Monday. So I really want to see commitment outside of the Asia range before I do anything. Everything else that I have around it, value lows, value highs, average ranges are still intact on the day. So yeah. MS says, I'm lightly suspecting a range day. We'll see. I mean, this is still out of hours for both of these products. So when LME kicks in, it might start livening up things. But then really I'm looking forward to COMEX. Because COMEX is still it brings the oomph into price action. Any minimum percentage of VWAP slope on the retest trend you just mentioned, or just any positive slope. So that's really dependent on the time of day, depending on the product, and I suppose even dependent on somewhat on the time frame, because VWAP usually has a time frame component, right? So not to like a terribly big degree, but there is, especially, you know, if you look at Topstep or something, there is a time frame component there for sure. But yeah, slope, I wouldn't want it to be a massive slope, because obviously then we'll be far away from VWAP. So to me, I would like to be in on the mean reversion rather than a trending move. And those typically don't work unless we have a single direction day. But yeah, moderate slope would do it, I think. So maybe, I mean, how do you calculate slope? So maybe give it a 2-degree slope or something, just so it's not like completely just, you know, dead and flat. So it kind of, obviously you have to have something else if you're going to do that through code. So I'm guessing volume validation. So in my eyes, the volume validation would be more important in that case rather than any sort of a slope. Slope can be there as a supportive factor, you know, but then it's like, oh, what sort of move do we have? Well, we have a trending move up. Great. Let's now look for a pullback. So VWAP almost becomes your trade location, and the entry condition can be like increase in volume. So as you notice the increase in volume, he will go in. So more kind of that order flow side of things rather than looking at any particular price action pattern or slope. So yeah, we can't be that rigid with code, because then you're never gonna find trades, right? I find that anytime I create any sort of trending code too rigid, yeah, the profitability improves, but then it trades like once a month, and I'm like, why didn't you trade today? Like it's like, let's say we had Thursday, and I had was it copper or was it something else that I was looking at? So copper clearly had a trend move up. So I'm like, why aren't you entering this? And he goes, oh, because X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, yeah, that's too much. So I then loosened the criteria based on what I know is true. So you have to have a lot of the observation as a manual trader. And then it goes, oh yeah, this is a setup, let's go in. So it entered a trade, and it works. So I was like, okay, so you know, we can't be too strict. It has to be a fine-tuned thing between enough opportunities and just enough moderate risk reward and moderate accuracy to have enough opportunities without messing up the results too much. Golden middle, that's what we're aiming for, as usual. MS says massive slope, mega news going on. Yeah, usually. Paul H., it's not your fault. It is the fact that we couldn't get all the marketing assets ready for today, so we decided to run another week on the old thing. I was under the impression that somebody's gonna let people know, but yeah, so next week is when we're planning it. So unfortunately I still have one more week of watching paint dry and just maybe talking to you about AI and coding and stuff, and because yeah, I'm not gonna be trading sideways price action here that has whole 39 ticks for the initial balance, and barely, where's my other, and again, barely any movement, everything's flat, VWAP is flat, moving average is flat, candles are flat, yeah. So until the candles get implants or something and we have some sort of asymmetry going on, I don't want to trade that. So yeah. And I'm looking at the COMEX versus LME values. They're not too different. If anything, COMEX was quieter, so it has a smaller value. 36.82 for Val and 36.89. I mean, that's pretty much the same as LME. So yeah, need to wait for LME first. What are the options doing? Why don't we have a look at options levels for something like gold, maybe crude oil, because I do still use crude oil for orientation, even though I don't necessarily express my views in crude oil, but rather RBOB and heating oil. Maybe we can look at natural gas too. All right, so yeah, gamma wall is still where it was last week. I mean, 3,700, and put support as well, 36.80. So literally, the option chain has not really moved much. The GEX levels have rearranged a bit. So what does that tell us? It's a range. It is a range. It's a very much flat price action on the daily. So am I surprised that gold options levels are not really moving? No. And if you do options, maybe this would be the time to write some options whilst we're in this range. But again, not financial advice, just an idea, all for educational purposes and discussion only, right? But yeah. Let's have a look at crude oil. Let's update that. Let's see what crude oil has done recently. And since I haven't analyzed it for a while, let's have a look at the weekly chart. Very flat on the weekly. So this overlapping value situation, again, we have yet another period where crude oil looks like it's going to move and then it just settles in a new range on the weekly. So what do we have here? We have the low. We have, I mean, really, this is the range, right? This was just a wick outside of it. So yeah, very flat. Daily chart. Again, indicative of a range. Some very low quality demand in this area. And range is compressing even more. So really until that changes, just ping highs and lows, right? That's pretty much what it's saying. Crude oil is now such a dull product. Oh my God. It used to be so fun back in the day. Yeah, crude oil is just starting to show signs of life, but not really. I want that to be a little bit bigger. But what do we have on the options? Technically, we should be in positive gamma, but let me double check that. Let me just check what crude oil is doing. CL. There it is. Are we still in October? We are. CLV, I'm looking for you. Where is CLV? There it is. Okay. Huh. So apparently it's a negative gamma. Interesting. Why? Do we cross over any levels? So interestingly, from the 0 DTEs, we had the HVL, which kind of technically should be the gamma environment, but you know, at 62.75, and then it almost touched it, but apparently we're still in negative gamma environment on crude oil, which means that most of the levels could act as more accelerators. You can kind of like smash into them, but then the accelerator eventually takes over. So it's not going to slice through all of them immediately or through GEX levels. However, don't expect GEX levels to necessarily act as stabilizers. I would actually expect twice the size of movement before it actually stabilizes in that situation. It's coming away from the bottom of that weekly area, so there's some value in longs, at least until we get to 64, if it ever gets there. But as always, me being a contrarian, I hate being long crude, so I want to short it. D wants to short crude oil. What else is new? Joe says, did you see my bearish analysis of a CL in Discord? Yeah, I did manage to read that. Still bearish after Friday reaction trade. I took short. Yeah. I'm always bearish on crude oil. It doesn't matter what they tell me. They're like, yeah, unless there's like a refinery that is closed down in either Iraq, Russia, Canada, like one of the big countries, I will be like, nah. Nah, we short crude. I will actively avoid long crude oil trades for a multitude of reasons. Johnny Soap says, oh my god, worst trading. Exactly. So this is why we're not in any active positions. We are just watching the development. Now, RBOB and heating oil are pretty fun. RBOB has been a bit range bound recently as well to reflect obviously what crude oil has done. And in fact, let's put them side by side. And be careful, RBOB is rolled into November. Crude oil hasn't. Caution, because we're in rollover there as well. Let's have a look at the daily chart, because I think that would be maybe the best. So yeah, I'm definitely not trading crude oil in rollover, because that's going to be even more watching paint dry, and I would rather go stick pins in my eyes. So there's that. But as you look at them on the daily chart, you can see that the price action is incredibly similar. Incredibly similar. Yeah? Peas in a pod. Very similar. So whatever crude oil does, RBOB can do it better. I'm not going to break into musical. And then we have heating oil. So let's put 3 of them side by side. How can I smush these together? Smush these together. So yeah, my strategies and bots on crude oil intraday used to be both sides of the equation, but since COVID ended and we went into this snooze fest on crude oil, I just look at like mostly range bound strategies, and then I will express them on RBOB or heating oil. Now heating oil still has some juice in it, right? Even though it's range bound, but if you look at the intraday time frame, it is actually a lot more sort of pronounced than the other two, and tends to suffer less from overlapping candles. So if I take the crosshair and if I overlay it So you see crude oil goes into a reversal and then seemingly has some movement, but all of that is like literally between 100 to maybe 120 ticks. However, RBOB in that same vein does the same movements in like 300 to 400 ticks movement. And then heating oil on the daily chart doesn't look like much, but out of these three, it has the least amount of overlapping candles in a trending move, even though there's still a fair amount of them, right? And here. But to me, this is okay because it's doing it in a 300 tick range. So you can find your 70 to 100 ticks on both sides. Whereas crude oil, you get one move out of it, and then the other move that I did like a million times before is supposed to happen, and it brings you 9 ticks. And you're like, click, 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 click. Like I wish I had a soundboard to do the blinking noise, yeah? Blink, 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 blink. It's like, what? And those setups used to bring me, 40 to 70 ticks, literally in minutes. And now it's like 9 or 10. If you get 15, you're like, yay, it was a good trade. I can't trade like that. I need a certain amount of ticks to be able to make that worth my time. And that's why I moved away from crude oil, because it had a personality transplant. Now, luckily, I could still trade other things. But yeah, it was a challenge for sure. MS says, I remember putting on RBOB contract and being down like 900 something real quick, then 2K. Yeah, so RBOB is like the NQ of the energies markets, but slightly less spastic inside the actual candle. Because, you're looking at intraday movement. It's fast, but it's also fairly decisive of which side it's going to run to, right? So if we go here, if it decides to turn around, it just turns, right? But you look at NQ and it's like wicks both sides. So here's what I don't like about NQ. I mean, look at it. This is horrible. How can you trade this? This is like pre-market. Okay, do we have a release? I don't even know whether we had a release. What is this? How can you possibly do anything with price action that looks like this? And then look at the composition of the candles, even in like the previous day. Look at how many wicks it's got both ends. Like, it's like wick up, wick down, wick up, wick down. Which way are we going? Nobody knows, but we're overlapping candles and then annoying everybody and then making everybody into complete psychopathic lunatic grasshoppers that chase price action, but you kind of never really get it because the stop loss is required to absorb this sort of movement. Will be pretty sizable. So yeah, I can see why scalpers like it, because you can't stay in on this. Even I can't stay in on NQ. Like, maybe if I change it to like high Kanashi or something, then I don't freak out. And I'm like, okay, it's still trending. But I would need to use like 140, 150 tick stop to trade my way. And then look at RBOB. It decides to move. Okay, we have some range here, but it's not humongously massive areas. And I think that was Wednesday. So that was the inventories. Always spiky. But if you look at once it moves, once it decides to move, it bloody moves, right? So let's say I identified a mean reversion setup up here, and I managed to swipe it in any part of this candle, right? Let's see what stop loss I would require. And RBOB is cheap, relatively. It's $4.20 per tick, but you do need 65 to 85 tick stop for the way I trade. And I say that because I scale my stops to the expectation of the average range. So 65 to 85 ticks. So let's say, even if I kind of mistime this, and let's say I didn't even go in until the bearish engulfing on the full 30-minute chart is there, which I don't really do because I do try and do it. The biggest stop loss that I would require here, in light of the structure, would be 85 ticks. And that would bring me 1, 2, 3, 4, like about a 5R move with very little pain, right? Would it have been in danger at any one point? Would I had to be all twitchy to take profits? No, because it moves to a different area, then consolidates. I like products like that. They are quick but smooth. Now, if you want something slower, copper is perfect for that. Copper is like the chillest metal ever on most days, and it moves, right? Now we're coming out of the summertime. Summer is not the best for copper, but we're coming into a prime time of sort of September, October, and November copper trading, where it's really nice. Let's just put it that way. But there's definitely a seasonality component to it. So, you know, trading it in the summertime, quite possibly trading it in January and February, it's a bit mad. But March, April, May, halfway through June, then it goes quiet. Most things do. And then you have second part of September, October, November, maybe first week of December, and then it goes quiet. So yeah. But RBOB generally moves pretty well. I'm expecting that it's probably going to move more as the colder weather starts setting in, because obviously there's a natural increase in demand whenever it gets really cold. But yeah, so no trades. No trades. We have not reached any. This is also why I wanted to do my algos, because they tell you whether there's anything to look at or not. And computer says no. Like, if you watched Little Britain ever, there used to be a show here in the 90s and noughties with David Walliam and what's his name? Matt. Oh God, his name escapes me now. Matt, what's his name? Paul, help me out. What's the name of the Little Britain guys? Yeah, and then he goes, there's like this woman that works on, he plays a woman that works in one of those systems that like look at your credit or something and then decides whether you can take something, and all she says to the customers is like, computer says no. Computer says no. So for me, you know, having my algorithms, if the computer says no, I'm also saying no, right? Matt Lucas, that's the one. Yes. And it kind of calms my brain as well, because I'm very, very calm anyways. But sometimes, you know, when you're on the stream, you feel the pressure. You're like, well, I need to enter a trade. People want to see me trade. I want to. No, that should not be like that. So I'm choosing to wait for my levels rather than try to do a punt on the range trade that I would never do in a million years if I'm just by myself, and trading away from the live streaming when I can not do a million things and actually have a pretty decent attention span, and I'm not trying to multitask, read chat, do this, entertain, you know. I would never do some of the trades that because I went through some of my live streams and I'm like, why am I in this trade? Like, what am I doing? We're trying to appease chat? Is that what's happening there, D? And yeah, I don't think we should be doing that. So again, I will be moving the show from next week, hopefully, to be later in the day. And the thing is, if we can't move it next week, I'm actually probably going to have to cancel Monday, because I am, like, I changed all of my schedule and everything that I need to do on that that day to be earlier. when So it's going to be a bit tricky if we can't do it on Monday, because I have to be in London to take my Seven, my doggo, to get snipped, because it is time. She's 3.5. And it's just going to be an easier surgery, because we're not doing the full-on spay. We're just doing the ovarian snip. Offers the same benefits, but it's a smaller surgery. So they just spend like a week out rather than like 6 weeks. And there's less complications later on. It's healthier for them. So yeah, 7 is about to be the pinnacle of feminism. No ovaries and yeah, career-minded woman. Is there such a thing as a career-minded dog? You can't trade RBZ on Topstep. Why would you trade RBZ when we're going into RBX, since energy markets roll religiously from one contract to the next? But you are correct that you can't do spreads. You can't do calendar spreads and things like that, because we are only doing front month contracts. It's an intraday prop firm where you cannot do options or anything. So it's literally just front month contracts, and whatever the contract rolls into, you need to stay on that contract. So options are not an option. Yeah. Just like simple trades, intraday, in and out, done. Joe said, did you watch last night of the proms? I didn't. Typewriter Song is classic. Bill Bailey performed it. I love Bill Bailey. Bill Bailey is one of my favorite guys, comedians ever. Yeah. How can you expect your doggo to have a cool life afterwards is beyond me. So she lives with 5 males. Do you want me to be irresponsible and not spay her? And then she has distorted inbred puppies? And I mean, what are you talking about exactly? What are you talking about? Most of my dogs live very full lives, and they live much longer than normal dogs. So I can assure you that my dogs are very well taken care of. They eat better than you, probably. They have daily walks, and they go to doggy daycare where they're trained, and they have social interactions with a whole bunch of other dogs. What are you on about? So can we stop with the nonsense? Some people, man, it's like, you don't know me. You don't know anything about me, right? But you come on the stream and start to criticize the way that I want to spay my 2 female dogs because I don't want them to be pregnant. It's like, first of all, my dogs, both of them are 3.5. They're nearly 4. So all of their bones have been done properly. And I'm not doing the full-on spay because that's more detrimental to their health. So I'm paying more to do an ovariolectomy instead, which is a smaller surgery with less complications and less long-term implications. And I know women that have had full hysterectomies, human women, that have lived very, very long lives with no problems. And also, leaving the cervix, it actually has some hormones in it. So you're not robbing them of the hormones, unlike some people who do go for the full space. So I don't know what people are on these days. Like, seriously, they're just like, oh, I'm being a responsible dog owner. Oh, how would you expect your dog to have a better life? It's like... Anyways, guys, it's time, but I'm going into rants. It's time for me to end this video because now I'm getting annoyed. And yeah, so this is it for the Euro trade. So another 3 days of the early Euro trade, and then, knock on wood, we're going to be going into the LME hours. And yeah, so please do join me for the next 3 days of the old Euro time. In the meantime, enjoy the main broadcast, and I will see you again tomorrow for the early your trade. I'm Marcus Doherty, and I will see you very soon. Take care.